So I don't think I've talked to you since your bike trip. How was the trip?
It, it was good. It was challenging at times. There were times like it was weird. Like I'm glad. Like every day we got a really early start, so we were basically up and out and starting to go toward where we needed to like get back to the trailhead from our hotel or whatever. Really between like 7 and 7:30 every morning,
Yeah, okay.
which was fine because there were some, oh my god, like especially the last 2 days, Jesus Christ, they were so hot and humid.
Oh, yeah.
And there were like a couple of days where I'm like, well, my legs just don't want to seem to do this anymore. It's like they've told my brain like, really, what's the point?
Yeah.
So at least for like my last 2 days entirely, and then maybe like the last 2 hours on day four were like all brand new and something that I could at least like cling on to. Like, all right, well, this I haven't seen this stretch before.
Right.
This is a new part of the journey and whatnot. So I'm glad I finally did it. I wish that I had been able to put the timing together like 6 years ago,
Yeah.
as opposed to like taking me 9 years to get back out. But I'm glad that I finally did it because it's honestly just, if nothing else, it's just been bugging the hell out of me
Oh, yeah.
because I if there is something that I feel that I can do and I try and it gets interrupted or it just doesn't come to completion and it's like something I can have a do-over with, like not finishing something that I actually have started and legitimately started, not just had the idea of, bugs the hell out of me. So it is
Right.
literally like it's been on my mind for 11 years.
Yeah.
The my coworker that I went with said, "So would you do this again?" I'm like, "Well, maybe." Like I don't like to repeat things. My goal is reaching the end.
Yeah.
That is where the fulfillment comes from me. And I know that that way of thinking can also stymie me in certain ways because the point is supposed to be the journey, not the destination sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get that. For me, the point isn't the journey. I hate to say it that way, but like it's not to be like I don't enjoy things as I'm going along,
Yeah.
but I'm doing something to finish it, to achieve it, to complete it.
It's the
Like
point
for
of
me, that's
these episodes we're doing right now.
yes, yeah.
You don't enjoy the journey. You're just here to check that box and say, yes, I watched some Fast and Furious movies.
I mean, yeah, maybe that's just a good meta commentary.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Brad Guy into Super Friends. I'm your host, Brian Labick. Joining me for this episode is someone whose wealth of car knowledge makes him a perfect choice to enjoy this franchise, Josh George.
Yeah, the one and only.
So as promised, we are back for another Never Seen That episode. These episodes were always envisioned as a way to kind of introduce someone to a movie or series that we're kind of usually surprised they haven't seen. So maybe it's something that isn't that surprising for someone to have missed, but something we feel they should have seen anyway. I guess I always sort of kind of saw it as a social experiment. Most of us have seen a movie that we loved as a kid. So could the person on the hot seat watching it today as an adult get the same kind of enjoyment as we did? And, maybe it's just me and my guilty pleasure of watching reaction videos and stuff like that. But I mean, if you've seen the movie a bunch of times, you can never get back that first reaction. So bringing someone new to the table is, I don't know, a way I always saw to sort of relive that experiment and that experience through someone else. I mean, some of the movies we've chosen, I guess, are more recent, so the logic of like something you grew up with as a kid doesn't really apply. like maybe it's more fitting to describe these movies as something that's just surrounded in hype that someone hasn't seen. So we again put that person on the hot seat, pick their brain before and after, and I think that's probably where we sort of describe this movie, our current movie, the movie or franchise, I guess, however we want to spin it, that is just surrounded in hype. If you've never listened to these, the format for these never seen that episodes is usually that we get some pre-viewing conversation with the person on the hot seat before we watch the movie. We'll break for the movie, and then we'll come back and talk spoilers and final thoughts and that kind of stuff. If you're just tuning into this one, having not listened to some of the other recent never seen that, see, Josh, I'm trying to do better at this, that we have that we have done in the past. A little bit of a backstory. This is a whole deal that Josh and I have started back in, I think we decided, the fall of 2019, we think?
Is when we actually got to kick it off, yeah.
Okay. I've known Josh's aversion to the Fast and Furious franchise, just as he knows my aversion to horror movies, so he had thrown down the gauntlet and said he'd agree to watch 2 Fast and Furious movies if I decided to watch, or agreed to watch, Zombieland back then.
Mm-hmm.
So after some discussion with him, I knew it was going to be a struggle. I kind of told him my main goal was to only show him 4 Fast and Furious movies. I know we're up to 9 now, 10 if you count Hobbs and Shaw, but I knew by the time we get to that, Josh would hate me as a person. So I figured I'd try to just chunk it out. And if I'm picking a chunk, 1, 4, 5, and 6 is the chunk that I was like, if we're going to watch some movies, this is what I want you to watch. And we'd go from there. So I watched Zombieland. He watched Fast and Furious 1 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
He hit me with Cabin in the Woods. I hit him with Fast 5. Mid-May, so about a month and a half ago, he hit me with A Quiet Place. And now it's time for me to hold up my end and show him Fast and Furious 6. And I also feel like, Josh, I got to hand it to you. You've been a very good sport for this, because I feel like the movies that you've picked for me I've largely enjoyed. I feel like the Fast and Furious movies, I'm still pretty sure you aren't sold on them, but you're sticking with it and you're giving it a shot.
I think, again, thanks for feeling that we picked things that you could actually have a good time with, and ended up enjoying. But I think my thing with Fast 6 is, or the Fast franchise is, they still, so far, but I can, it's not that I don't see the enjoyability and the cookie cutter popcorn appeal.
Yeah.
I guess I am not, at this point, after 3 of them, I am not seeing what makes them any better or different than any other cookie cutter popcorn action movie series, whether a series or a one standoff.
Right.
Which is fine. There's just not any particular thing that has grabbed me in terms of character interaction, through line story threads necessarily. To say like, oh yeah, these are good. I like these. I like those Fast movies.
Yeah.
Definitely the fast movies. You always know that they're going to be a good thing. So yeah, okay, they can be entertaining for 2 hours, enough. There's nothing bad enough about them that seems. The only analogy I can ever come up with, it's like they're not as bad as like the boy bands of action movies.
Care to elaborate on that?
So, this is going to get into, seeming more like, well, what is what is popular by definition not good? There are certain things that are made to appeal to masses that mostly, by evaluation of, call it art, are not really meant to be good art.
Okay, yeah.
Right? And that's where a lot of pop music comes from, and the boy band analogy comes from.
See, this is probably where we differ, because I love the boy bandy stuff, so maybe this is why this franchise is like here for me. Like I'm fine with it. Yeah, I get it.
But you know what I mean, though. The reason that the music is made is for purpose A.
Yeah.
And not purpose B. And that's fine. You can still serve purpose A. But in serving purpose A, you understand that there's certain things you're not achieving
Yeah.
in the art form. Um, these movies so far have not completely crossed the bridge from B to A.
Yeah.
There's still at least something about them that, it you can tell. Yes, it takes a lot of technical planning, and the stuff that the directors, the stunt coordinators, the technical coordinators are pulling off takes skill and planning and talent and all that. That's fine. The stories themselves, I don't know. I feel like you could take out half of what actually happens in the movies, especially between characters emotionally, and it wouldn't impact anything. Like you could replace it with other things,
Right.
and that part doesn't really matter
And I think, part of the joke for the intro was that you're not a car guy either. So I think the
at
franchise
all.
started
No.
with the hook of like, hey, this is sort of like a car movie and
Mm-hmm.
street culture type of stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're into that, it gets you into the franchise. Maybe you watch a couple movies and somewhere along the way something else hooks you, and then you just kind of like follow through and just, we're at the point now where I'm so deep in this, as long as they make them, I'm going to watch them. So it, at some point, I think most people I think that like them get hooked in some way, form, or fashion that way.
Okay.
I don't, and maybe it's like at the time they came out, like Vin Diesel was maybe not big, but I guess like something that came out of that where people were like, oh, okay, Vin Diesel's cool. I'm going to follow Vin Diesel. And, Paul Walker was big at the time. So, that could be another get for people that just like, okay, anything Paul Walker's in, I'm going to start watching all of that.
Yep.
So, yeah, if none of that stuff hooks you, then you're just left solely on like, okay, what are these movies doing and what are the story that's here? And, I'm at the point where sticking with this franchise for this long, and really, like you said, you sort of just kind of know what to expect at this point. So
Mm-hmm.
looking at the franchise, if you actually look and study it, it makes absolutely no fucking sense. So you're just kind of in it, and I just kind of, I guess, I don't want to say it's forgivable because some of the stuff, like I would probably knock any other franchise for doing some of the things that they do,
Okay.
but it's something that I guess I'm used to, and especially after coming off of recently seeing 9, like this franchise is getting to the point where it knows exactly what it is. It hears all the complaints. It leans into them very hard, and it's just like, okay, this is what you want to do. This is fine. We'll do it. Now what? Show us what else you got. Like it always seems like it's a some sort of fun battle between the audience and the movie people of like who's going to one up themselves.
Okay.
Like,
Like the filmmakers are almost daring you to
yeah,
keep coming back.
yes, exactly. So they do something crazy, and then the audience is like, "Man, that was nuts! What are they going to do next?" And then they're like, "Hold my beer," and then they give them the next movie, and then they do it again, and you're just like, "What the hell? Where are they going to go from here?" And it just escalates every
Mhm.
time. So if there's any truth to them hitting to like movie 11 or 12, have no idea where the hell this franchise is going to go. But I mean, I guess the good news for you, at least, Josh, is that this
Yeah.
is the end of our original agreement. I've always said I was going to show
It is.
you 1, 4, 5, and 6. I think that's a good set of movies as far as some sort of continuation of a story thread that seems to go through them. Um, in my opinion, I think as far as the story for fast movies, they blend together fairly well. If you had come out of this the other side and actually enjoyed some of these movies, I'd start deciding if we're going to show you more.
Mhm.
So I guess maybe I'll just ask you and we can sort of revisit this question when we finish the movie. But leading
Yeah.
up to Fast 6, are you already thinking this is a good place to stop? Like this will be
Mm.
enough?
Well, like I said, there is no way on my own that I'm just gonna pick one that I haven't seen yet. Either 2 or 3 that we skipped, or beyond.
Right.
7 through whatever it is now. And like on my own because I got the house to myself for the afternoon or an evening, and right. Probably not even just with Sarah. Um, if anything, this is especially at this point, it's been over a year and a half that we've been trying to go through these. That
Yeah.
you know it's now kind of become like a quasi community thing with at least me and you.
Yeah.
And at the times that we actually sit down together to watch the movies, typically others join us. So for it to be a reason for people to come together and it not be, again, like I don't want to use the word just horrible. I need a better, like I need a thesaurus. It's not like grinding time. It's like, okay, again, they're action movies.
Right.
Things are happening. I've seen, Commando and every other, bad 80s action movie. These can't really be any worse.
Yeah.
Kind of mental state of it. So if we continued, like the short answer to the question, I guess, is would I absolutely, like, with those things in mind,
Yeah.
would I absolutely say no? I will never spend time of my life consuming these films, beyond this again, if those other elements are there. If
Okay.
there's a reason for us to chat about it for the show. If people that I know, and it's an excuse for us to get together and see each other. Sure, that's fine.
So what you're saying is, in the year of yes, if I said, Josh, hey, I'm going to have some people over to watch Fast and Furious 7, you would have to say yes.
I would say that the correct question is, Josh, in the year of yes, would you consider extending our show contract? Then I would say we should go to the negotiation table.
So
talk about it.
So more or less, if we continue, it would have to be, we'll continue the pact of trading movies.
I mean, at the very least, I think that gives us both something to do, and it gives us content.
Yeah.
The show, it gives us fodder. I think if we were to keep going, it's like a lost opportunity to not keep coming back here to revisit it and discuss with for everybody. So like, why not?
Yeah, because that's the thing too. It's like, if at this point, if we decided to just watch them together off air and not talk about it, like you're right. I feel like it would be a missed opportunity. It's like, well, we got this far. We got like halfway through them. We might as well do the other ones if we're like for the show. If we're just gonna watch them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that.
Through the saga journey with us.
Yeah. So I get. Moral of the story is, we can revisit this again after we watched the movie. But for the audience, I guess Josh and I can sort of talk off air, or give us some comments if you guys like this stuff. If you like hearing Josh's journey, good or bad, through the Fast and Furious franchise, let us know. We can make more of an effort to do that. If not, we're kind of just gonna wing it and kind of go at our own pace here and decide if we want to do it. If Josh and I sort of decide other movies to trade or something like that, it might be somewhere down the line that we revisit this, not as quickly as some people might want. So again, if you want to hear it, let us know. We'll make more of an effort to get it out there quicker and figure something out.
Absolutely.
Well,
let's get a little bit specific, because I was thinking about this all week when we scheduled this time, and I think I had the same problem that I did when we talked about Fast 5, which was I don't know how much of the previous two movies I remember.
I was going to ask that because
I feel like because we skipped 2 and 3, the first one is very easy to compartmentalize.
Yeah.
And keep in its own bucket. I remember that the Rock doesn't show up until 5.
Yes.
And am I correct that the climax sequence in 4 is the one where they're dragging the massive safe through the city, or is that
it's 5? Also 5?
That's also 5.
Yeah.
Then I don't remember shit about 4. Because that was like the main thing I thought I remembered about 4.
Yeah. Yeah, because again, it's deceiving, I think, looking at the podcast episode list.
4 was the drug runners with the mountain tunnels.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
For the audience, like, it looks like, hey, we just did Fast 5. No, we didn't. The whole thing of that episode is we recorded it when we did Cabin in the Woods. It just got lost in my files, and
Yes,
never came out until
we
last
recorded
month.
that in October of 2020, and then as we went to get ready for Quiet Place in May of 2021, we realized that we never released the Fast Five episode, so that finally got out like right after Memorial Day
Yeah.
of this year. So there was like between the last time we watched five and talked about it, that was October. So that's now 9 months.
Yeah.
8.5 to 9 months.
So the audience is like, what the hell? You guys just listened to this or watched this movie last month.
Yeah.
No, it's been a lot longer than that for us.
It's been a little bit.
Yeah, you know what? So just not that anybody would care, or if you're listening to this, you probably shouldn't need the spoiler alert, but just real quickly, if you have not watched the other previous Fast and Furious movies, which I'm again assuming you have, if you're listening to this episode, just skip ahead a few minutes because I'm going to try to give Josh a real quick sort of refresher. So, one, you said you remember, that's the Point Break with cars and Paul Walker, Vin Diesel,
Yep,
type of format.
and
4
Yep,
opens with Letty, Michelle Rodriguez, dying.
right.
Her death brought the crew mostly back together. They did the drug running for Mexico to get the guy that killed Letty, basically.
Yes.
And at the end of that, Dom turned himself in, only to have the crew break him out.
Right. I remember giving them shit about that. Yes.
Yeah. So you see that they're going to break him out of the prison bus. 5 opens with the prison bus that just rolls over 50 million times and probably killed everybody, and yet Dom and everybody else walks away.
That's right, because I did re-listen to our Fast Five episode once we actually put it out, and then I remembered making all the comments about the crew having absolutely no concern for life other than like their closed circle of people.
Yes. Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
So they bust Dom out of prison. They end up in Rio, where The Rock, who is Luke Hobbs, shows up to hunt them down. They get caught up with the drug lord guy of Rio. Steal, like, that's the sequence you remember, stealing his safe from the dirty cops. And so by the end of this, they are rich. They have successfully heisted this guy and have millions of dollars. And then there is an end credits scene that shows Letty is still alive.
Right. Yeah. And there was somebody, who's the actress? Somebody either came back or
Eva
they,
Mendes.
Introduced. Yes. And
Yeah.
she was not in the previous ones?
She was in number 2, which we didn't watch.
Okay, so I wouldn't have known that. Okay.
So
I didn't
so
know
that's
she was
like your
around these,
refresher.
so- Okay.
So at the setup for this one, they are still technically on the run, but they're rich, so they can hide pretty much wherever the hell they want to.
Okay.
So that's kind of where the crew is at, I guess.
So does it seem either because at the very least, like from 4 to 5, it was very Casino Royale Quantum of Solace,
Okay.
where it the next one starts literally where the other one stopped.
Yes. Yeah.
Is maybe not that drastic, but does 6 at least seem to, and I said, like I said before, it just doesn't seem like yet that they have built like a through narrative that is continuing. It just seems like almost like episodic.
Yeah.
So does whatever happened in the last 2 at least, or at least number 5, have an impact on what is happening in number 6? Does it carry through? Does it
6
do we
is
just basically
another
start with something fresh, so to speak?
is another, like, almost like, world-saving plot is sort of where these movies start to go. But
Okay.
the hook for the crew is that Letty's alive.
Okay.
So their realization that, hey, this person we thought was dead is possibly alive and kicking. How do we get her? What do we do for that?
Mhm.
And then they get tied up in a bunch of other shit that goes on. Is the pitch, I guess, for the movie.
Gotcha.
So I don't think it's like right after 5. Like, I think there's some time that has passed. I just don't know how much time. I don't think
Mhm.
like a year or 2. I think it might be less than that, but I don't know if the
But at
movie
least
actually tells you.
the things that they teed up aren't just let go. Like, it actually has an impact on what's going forward.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
The other thing I guess that's somewhat important is that in 5, by the end of 5, which is randomly happens kind of very quickly. But like, there's the female police officer that's in 5. That is, I don't remember her name, but I know she's married to Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, yeah.
By the end of 5, she's sort of kind of, I guess, with Dom. Like, they're shown at the end holding hands with Mia and Brian.
I sort of remember that. Okay.
So it like I'm pretty sure pick six picks up with the two of them together, and then like
Okay.
Dom finds out that Letty's alive, so now it's like, well, now what?
So is it and that's not that I have like strong opinions about this in society. Otherwise, I just think if this is a trend, it's a weird one to have picked. Is that just a thing that they established that this character of Vin Diesel does to people in law enforcement?
I think it's just more or less like hot guy gets hot girl type of thing. Like that's
Right, but
just
I mean,
movie
kind of
101.
kind of had the same trajectory with Paul Walker.
Oh, true.
You
Yeah,
know, like eventually you'll see that actually, upholding the laws of a civilization is really a waste of time.
yeah. Then you just go on the
You,
run
you
with everyone else.
right. We're gonna woo you to our side because reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you've made the argument where like these guys are not heroes. If anything, they're anti-heroes. So
Barely.
it's more like
It's almost. I mean, it's almost like Suicide Squadish,
yeah, yeah. I
where
can
they're like
see
not
that.
necessarily being well. At least at this point, I don't know if it goes this way, but like they're not being directed or employed by the authorities to do things. They find themselves in those circumstances, and
Right.
like yeah, it's like okay, we're. I think maybe I did make this comment on 5. I forget, but um, we're not great people, but we're not the worst. So
Yeah.
we're yeah, right, we're fighting against the drug runner and
Right.
and maybe these other corrupt people who are doing things. We're in it for ourselves,
Yeah.
but we happen to be screwing over worse people, so therefore you should cheer for us.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's a lot of the gist. Yes.
All right.
Um, and I recently maybe we can talk about it even after watching the movie, but like I was recently starting to watch a couple of these again, just leading up to 9.
Mhm.
And I had watched 4, and then I watched 5 again, and I feel like 5 is definitely the movie I can point to say, yes, this is the movie where the franchise turns a corner
Okay.
and just starts to exponentially get more ridiculous as the movies go on.
I will say from what I remember, I mean I do remember pointing out a couple like the I think it was specifically like the the it was either in the opening sequence of 5 there was either a tractor trailer or the prison bus itself, something was like flipping down the road over and over
I think it was
like
definitely the prison bus.
toward one of their vehicles, that one of them like it either passes over them somehow or they drive under it as it's flipping, some
They
shit like that.
the whole prison break sequence is they take the Charger, go out in front of the bus, slam on the brakes so the bus tries to veer away but clips the corner of the car in the back,
Mm-hmm.
that then kicks it up in the air, which the bus should theoretically plow right through that car. I don't care
Oh,
what
it would
that car
shred
is
it like
made of.
tinfoil. Yeah.
But the bus pops up in the air and then just barrel rolls down the street,
Right.
which at that point is full of people,
Yes.
none of
Again,
which
we
are
don't we
buses don't have seatbelts.
yeah,
So
but we don't care about them because they're prisoners, so their morality has damned them.
yeah, I mean, that whole sequence, you never see anyone in the bus. You just see the bus rolling, and then you see the news report afterwards of saying, like, so-and-so broke out from the prison bus,
Mm-hmm.
delivered by, which surprises me every time, Purred Hapley.
It was Bird.
Yeah.
Yes, I do remember that.
Um,
So does it? So okay. So other than that, I think I remember from 5 at least that most of the other action sequences seemed somewhat grounded in reality, and even though they were like big and like a spectacle, and there's like a lot of damage, and
Yeah.
I think I remember saying like, oh yeah, that safe that they that was the size of a small shack
yeah.
that they're dragging through a city business district, like they're just wiping through casualties
Oh, yeah.
in those first floor places like no tomorrow, trails of blood and bones everywhere. But the way that the sequence is designed seemed somewhat believable.
Yeah.
like unlike the barreling prison bus. Um, so at the very least through 5, most of what they were presenting was like, all right, probably no one could do it, but it doesn't seem fantastical
Yeah.
and stupid per se, other than the bus rolling. Um, do they jump the shark in this with that, or do they still stay somewhat like, wow, that was
I
tough, but
honestly,
at least believable?
in my recollection, it's been a while since I've seen 6 and 7 back to back.
Hmm.
In my recollection, 7 is the one to me that's like, okay, this is where they're going off the deep end. 6, I think, still has moments. Like you can start to see where this franchise is going to go, and there's some logistical and physics nightmares that happen.
Hmm.
But 7 is the one that's just like starts giving me some of the roll your eyes, like, okay, this is how they're going to do these now. Okay, so that, and maybe those would be the fun ones to watch with you, where they start to veer into like, if you think they're bad, they're just kind of like good bad,
Okay.
like just so stupid that like, okay, sure, yeah, let's fucking see what else they do. But again, it sounds like I'm talking shit on the movies. I still watch them. I still liked them. I saw 9. I still liked it. 9 has like uh, a whole bunch of issues that I could laundry list them to me. But
Hmm.
again, I'm locked into this thing. I'm gonna watch them all. So we'll see. Um, we sort of already talked about it. We'll sort of wind down with this. And maybe I'll just make it a two-parter. Any expectations going into this one? And is there anything in this movie that could like win you over and sort of turn the corner for you?
That second one always seems to be, it's like after the first, maybe like the persistent question. Um,
I'm starting to wonder if, if we get to the point where they get so ridiculous that suddenly you come back around. Like, it's one of those songs where you hate it the first couple times you hear it, but the more you hear it, it always comes back around. Like, you know what? I'm into this again before you start to hate it
mhm.
again.
Gotcha. Um, I don't know. To answer the second one first, probably not. And I think it's because, and we kind of talked about this when we did Rewind Theater for Bloodshot, which was there were certain movies are made with Vin Diesel in certain ways, and the script is polished in a certain way, and a sequence is designed sometimes purely for the goal that is being served of Vin Diesel looking and sounding cool.
Yeah.
He and it's not anything against him personally. He's not a good actor,
Yeah.
and
He has one thing that he does all the time.
yes, and if you like that, great. It can be entertaining, and that's fine. But because the story plots and the sequences and the looks he gives, the way that they like just everything that surrounds everything about him involved in these,
Yeah.
I think keep it limited to a box that will never say to me like to at least use the term won me over.
Okay.
It's just too narrowed.
Yeah.
There can be entertaining things about it, and it can be the popcorn flick. That's fine, nothing wrong with that. Um, but I can't see it ever losing that part of the prism that it's made through enough to ever see myself calling myself a fan,
Okay.
if that makes sense. And then with expectations, um, how many? So is The Rock through the rest of these? Still, is he in like? I'm assuming he's in 6, but is he also
He
in
is in
7 and 8? Was he
6.
in 9?
He gets to 8, I think. And then they do the spin-off from 8.
Right, and he did not come back from not for 9.
Correct.
Okay, so it didn't in the way that the first movie ended, where like yeah, Paul Walker kind of like walks away from law enforcement again, like but kind of like turns the corner to kind of become his friend in a way. I don't see that happening. Like that didn't happen with The Rock at the end of 5.
Right. He does kind of let him go, but he says, I'm still going to come after you. I'm going to give you 24 hours because you
Right.
help me out here.
right. Like he sees what he did and that he wasn't the enemy in that moment, but he's Mr. Lawman and he's gonna get his guy.
Yeah.
Um, so since that didn't happen, I'm assuming that part of that dynamic, which is like the give and take between him and his law enforcement entity and the crew and what they're trying to do will persist. I would not be surprised if the battle of egos, at least presented on screen, um, gets amplified even more than it was last
Between
time as
Rock
well.
and Vin
Between The
Diesel?
Rock and Vin Diesel,
Okay.
yeah. I know Paul Walker is still around because he completed 6, right? They were making 7
Yeah, they were in the middle
when
of
he
7
passed.
when he died.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm not sure if they're going to continue because I kind of forget where it left off. If they're going to continue the like Paul Walker, Jordana Brewster thing, and if
So that was another key thing is in 5, she admitted that she is pregnant.
okay, now I completely forgot that, but
Yeah.
now I remember it. And will this sort of we become bros, but like that's still my sister dynamic between the two of them persist. I mean, I'm thinking more just like character interactions and character arcs
Yeah.
as opposed to like I have no idea what the plot could be. Jesus Christ!
Well,
Who
what's
knows?
fun too is like at this point in time, like when this movie came out, assuming most of the people listening to this are probably into it at that point. So like we watched 4, 5, 6, getting ready for 6. You've seen trailer for 6. Like you're going in completely blind. You've seen no trailers. You have no inkling of what the hell's going on. So this is
Right.
even more fun to me. Just like it's very hard for people, just movies in general, to find someone to go into something completely blind.
hmm
And I think that's the most fun coming out the other end of watching a movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably good that like not that I was looking for it, but 8 came out during the period I was working at the movie theater. If I ever saw a preview for that, it's completely been wiped from my memory. I never saw any the only and this has got to be the most general thing you could probably ever say about these movies is I think the only maybe memory I retained about like walking in and out of theaters while movies were on and whatnot during that period. I only remember people. It was probably the closing of the movie, sitting down at a picnic table, seeming like they were having a picnic, and I'm pretty damn sure of course, Vin Diesel says family. If that's even true. If my memory's not betraying me, that's all I remember. I know nothing about 9. I didn't care to watch trailers.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about anybody like any other actors who might come around. I don't know who might be new in 6. I don't know if that continues through 7. So, it's pretty much gonna be a blank slate the entire time.
Yeah, if we ever get to other, like some of the newer ones, some of the casting that is in some of those movies, I'm wondering if you'd be like, what? I feel like your reaction is going to be, why the hell are you here?
What does Ian say? They're there to get their bag.
Oh, yeah, they want the paycheck.
Paycheck movies, yeah.
Yeah.
That could be it. I thought the same thing. I don't remember if it was. I only saw the first 3 Transformer movies, and I forget if Frances McDormand shows up at some point, and I forget if that's 3 or if I just like saw something from 4 or 5.
See, I've seen all of them, but I don't remember where they would show up.
I was pretty sure it was her, if my memory's serving. But it was the same kind of thing, where it's like, what? You're you.
Yeah.
Why are you doing
like
this?
you're supposed to be much better than this franchise. What are you doing in this franchise?
Yeah, like I get like maybe you're trying to, set up like trust funds for the nieces and nephews. Good on you. You do you got here. If they're gonna give you $5 million to be in Transformers 5,
You wonder if
sure.
it's one of the, like, you hear stories of actors and actresses of like debating whether or not to show up in like a Marvel movie or a comic book movie, and it's like, oh well, my kids are really into it, so they kind of forced, not forced me, but encouraged me to do it, so I did it for them. I wonder if the Fast and Furious stuff is like, well, I know, my kids or nieces and nephews are really into that and thought it'd be fun to do something like that, to be in there for them, like,
Yeah,
maybe it's less about the
point.
paycheck and something a little bit more like that, but who Who knows? That's purely speculation.
Sure. And even if that is the case, if you are a big enough person and you're going to do it, quote, for that reason, and they're still going to give you $3 million
Oh, yeah. Icing on the cake.
do like a week's worth of dialogue work. Yeah, I'm sure that really makes them cry.
Yeah. Can't argue that one. All right, so I think that's where we'll stop for now. Nothing left to do now but rip off the Band-Aid for Josh. So we're going to watch the movie, and we'll come back with the possibility of probably having, hopefully, some added guests, and we'll see what Josh thinks after experiencing possibly his last Fast and the Furious movie.
Stick around just to find that out.
Yeah, we'll talk to you later. All right, and we are back after having finished Fast and Furious 6. We've also added another guest. So we've got the voice of Vin Diesel, Mike Bradley.
I don't know how to, like, the voice of Vin Diesel. Are you saying I sound
I don't
like
know if
Vin Diesel?
Yeah, I don't know if you are aware of this, but you ADR for Vin Diesel in all these movies.
Oh. I mean,
it's not Vin's voice. You're deep and gravelly also. I think you got this.
I mean, your astonishment makes it sound like your agent is really hosing you.
Doesn't tell you what gig you're recording for. He just tells you to say family 20 different times.
Family and Corona.
It's like his Iron Giant or Groot sessions. Like, here's 4 words you have to say the whole time.
You know, I never thought of myself as somebody that effortlessly sounds like Vin Diesel, but I'll take it. Sure.
I mean, of the 3 of us, I definitely would be the least Vin Diesel-y, if need be. And on the just vocal registers, you're probably at the lower of the 3 of us.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, so before we jump into the movie, I'm going to throw out the spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Fast and Furious 6, and I guess most likely the other few movies before that series, in the series also, and don't want spoiled, pause this now, come back after catching up. Otherwise, continue on. We'll do our best to spoil the movie for you. Either way, spoilers to follow.
Wee-oo, spoiler! Wee-oo, spoiler! You know, something like that.
All right, so we are in spoiler territory. We talk about whatever we want to for the movie. And I guess basically it's time to pick Josh's brain. So
Let's do it.
Initial thoughts, and I'll frame this as easily as I can. Was it as bad as you'd expect?
Can I ask for one clarification?
Absolutely.
Ahead of time, because I'm sure you guys talked about this before I joined. This is your 4th Fast movie?
Correct.
Yeah.
So 1, 4, 5, and 6 is what
Yes.
you have seen. Just so I'm clear
Right on
on
the
what
money.
you have seen and I know what we're dealing
Yeah.
with. Okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to be on that. Go for it.
100%. Up until a very specific point, no. It was not as bad as I made it out to myself to be. And then it got past that and again kind of cooled off. But there's a nice little 5-minute chunk that really exemplifies what I absolutely thought the whole thing would be, and we'll get into that later.
Mike, since we're adding you after the fact, and
Yeah.
we know this is new for Josh, was this a rewatch or a first watch for you?
Oh, many times over rewatch.
Okay, just wanted to clarify and make sure. When was the last time you watched this one? Do you remember?
Me? You told me we were doing that. I watched it this morning.
Well, I mean, before that, prior to watching it for the podcast.
You gave me homework, Brian. You told me. I just
Cheeky motherfucker.
I'm just being honest. I watched 4, 5, and 6 last night into this morning.
Oh, you got caught up in a big way.
Well, it had been a long time since I watched 4 and 5.
Okay.
I watched 6, 7, and 8 before we went to watch 9, actually.
Okay.
So I didn't really need to rewatch this again this morning, but I did anyways.
Yeah.
But before that, let's go before. Year, maybe?
Okay. And I guess, since you've sort of come off fresh watching 4, 5, and 6, I think, do you understand why I wanted to do that trilogy for him?
I mean, I understood before why you wanted to, but I don't know that Josh understood going into it. I get why.
Yeah. I think those 3 movies pretty much exemplify where this franchise goes. 4 is still pretty grounded, 5 starts to take a turn, 6 leans a little bit more into we're kind of batshit crazy at some points. And then, the other movies exponentially, I think, go beyond that. But we'll have to see if we ever get there.
Yeah.
But I guess just from your perspective, too, what did you think after rewatching the movie again?
In terms of...
Like, enjoyment, anything stuck out to you after this one? Anything like that?
Honestly, like, I'm watching this one with a little bit more in mind about what could I ask Josh about this movie?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of
So you're not
things do I
even
wanna
looking
get-
for your personal enjoyment or anything like that?
Well, being that I had, like, just watched it, like, maybe 10 days ago before
Yeah.
this watching... No, I was watching, like, just for, like, homework, literally, like, what can I really ask Josh about? But, like, this one, I think, 4, 5, and 6 they're all okay. Like, 5, I think, is the best of these movies. 6, I feel like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess we're in spoiler territory here, so all the retconning and shit that happens is like...
And it doesn't matter.
No,
I mean, like, if you're going to reference something that has yet to come in the series, like, that's going to probably, I imagine, be part of our discussion later. But
no. I meant, like...
if you're introducing anything, it's not going to matter to me.
I mean,
No,
Letty
I meant
specifically is the big retcon in this one.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, is,
okay.
is the stuff that's in this one. We're in spoiler territory for 6. I don't want to spoil 7, 8, or 9 for listeners that haven't watched them yet, but
Fair.
we have offered the spoiler warning for 6.
Right.
And Letty being alive here at the beginning of this one is kind of like, she was pretty definitively dead. It was kind of the whole basis of 4, and a lot of the plot, still kind of stuck to that a little bit in 5, and...
And there's a lot of, like, I even made sure I watched for it in, like, because I rewatched 4 recently, too. But the moment where she dies and the car flips over and the guy comes over and shoots her, at no point in that flashback scene does he, like, suddenly point the gun at the car. That is all new stuff for this movie. It plays exactly the same up until that last second. It's like, you know what? No, I'm not going to shoot a person. I'm going to shoot the car. Now we have a retcon that we can make this work for her. That's the stuff that always bugs me about this franchise as a whole. And they don't stop with this movie. It continues to happen. And that for me is a nitpick that I cannot get over.
I guess what it, like, that comes from killing off fan favorites. Because everybody liked Letty, and then they did the same thing with Han.
Yeah.
Where, Josh, you haven't seen this, I guess, but...
No, but Brian explained it to me.
Well, there's an end credits scene in this one that shows Han dying.
Right. But like, and that establishes a timeline for us.
Yeah.
Which is also screwed up, frustratingly, because he says at the end of 4, like, oh, I'm gonna go check out Tokyo.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
And then it's
I'm
like,
not gonna
okay,
check out
so
Tokyo
he's...
for another 2 years.
Yeah, like, I'm just... Oh, I thought you went... Oh, you didn't go to Tokyo. Okay. Like, alright.
I thought I remembered that, too, as we were getting into this. Like, didn't they, specifically mention that already?
In 4 and 5.
And they
which
dropped that to, like, try to establish continuity
Yeah.
of some kind. Like, hey, remember that other story that we've already shown you.
Yeah, so it's like we know the character. If you've watched the other movies, I guess, you know Han eventually ends up in Tokyo. And then in 4 and 5, he's... Even this one's 2. He keeps mentioning he's going to go to Tokyo at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So just leaving the door open to eventually get there.
Gal Gadot's character mentions it in 6 and says, like,
Well, yeah,
let's
this
go
is
to Tokyo
because this is
again.
supposed to be, because of the end credit scene, you're meant to believe that after 6 he goes to Tokyo, and then Fast 3 happens, and he dies.
Right. It's just like that annoying little step process of like, hey, I'm gonna go to Tokyo. I'm gonna go to Tokyo.
Yeah.
Hey, we should go to Tokyo.
Yeah, we got there. We got there eventually.
Yeah.
Josh, we'll come back around to you. And I know one of your hurdles for what we've watched so far has been these characters. Have you come around at all to these characters? Is there any that you actually enjoy, or are they still like, nope, they're criminals, write them off, done?
So I think again. So there's a different side of them that was finally introduced I think in this one where I actually I get a better sense of who the individuals are.
Okay.
They and maybe this is the cause of over like this, especially like last 3 movie arc of finally arriving at a point where, okay, I understand this person's personality better.
Yeah.
They're not just somebody who chimes in with dialogue at points and then eventually takes part in a thing and then it happens and it's over. This one, for me, distinguished people a bit better. And it wasn't, I think I mentioned this when we were watching, but I feel like only Ludacris, like, very strongly out of nowhere got put into more of an archetype than anyone else did.
Yeah, the tech guy.
The tech guy, right? But at least everybody else, I got a sense of, okay, that is who this person is, and they increased that, and that was a plus. On the on the so what? I kind of lost the thread of what I was saying. What was the core question?
Well, I can make a note on what he said. You haven't seen 2,
Mm-hmm.
correct? Too Fast, Too Furious?
Correct.
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 You don't even realize how out of context him being a tech guy is. It makes no sense with his character from 2. He's just
Yeah,
like an
he
old
keeps-
street racer / like organizer community guy.
Yeah, I think he's asked me when we were watching, like, was he always the tech guy? And I was like, no. He started way back doing, like you said, doing the races. He was a mechanic, worked in a garage a little bit. That was all we got. That was it.
And everybody liked him. Like,
Yeah.
all of Miami loved Tej.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Now he's all of a sudden he's a computer genius. All right. You needed one. They needed a computer genius, and they just...
Yeah, we kind of got one line in Fast 5, I think, when he's looking at the safe. Like, well, I used to have a life outside of when you knew me, O'Connor, or something like that. Like, I used to do other stuff. Like, that's the best we get for...
other
He's got other
stuff.
skills. Yeah. The second part of that question, Josh, was, are there any characters that you enjoy? Anybody you can sort of get behind and say, you know what, I do kind of like that one. I will watch that
that's
one.
right. That's right. Like, so do individually or as a group, do I really care about them? So the last 2 especially. So the fourth movie is just personal revenge.
More or less, yeah.
The first movie, yes, again being Point Break, is just what are their selfish enterprise goals. 4 is a revenge movie. 5 is, from what I remember, kind of still a revenge movie, but like again, like bad people getting screwed over by worse people and then trying to get revenge or level it out from those worse people. This one, so this is the first one, okay, that they're put in the place of, hey, help us. We're the good guys. You're kind of the bad guys. Help us get the worst people.
Yeah.
And we're directly, explicitly kind of making that partnership. So taking the element away where what they're looking to achieve is purely self-serving, and what they're going to come away with is cash and loot for themselves, for instance, does help me root for them a bit more than I was before, especially from like the first one, maybe like 1 and 4.
Okay.
When the goal of their motivations is not just to get away with the steal, like, that's great. I don't really give a shit if you do or not. That like, you whatever. Okay. So because the goal, the end purpose was a bit more esoteric, and they're moving that direction. If that continues, that will help me not focus so much on these are just annoying, selfish people. Why do I care whether they get what they want?
Yeah.
That will help me compartmentalize that aspect of it. So that's the broad question for the group as a whole.
Okay.
That's the broad answer. Individually, I'm probably supposed to. I still don't really care about Dom that much.
Yeah, you made a comment to me, I think, when we were done watching, that what you said something along the lines of you cared more about the characters and what was going on when Vin Diesel was not on screen.
Correct. About the overall goal, about what's happening, because and I think I either said this in our preamble for this, or I've said it in the last, maybe for Fast Five. It's still a Vin Diesel movie, regardless of who shows up in these. This is a Vin Diesel franchise whole cloth, and as the previous comments I've made, every time Vin Diesel is in a scene, has to say something, has to do anything. The cinematography, the position of the characters, the angle of the cameras, the way that the dialogue is delivered and designed, and etc. All of it is to make Dom look like a badass and make that line that he can't deliver because he can't act sound so cool. Like he in most of these movies, like maybe in one a bit more, he has very few, and I think this is maybe the most fair, like middle of the road comment I could make about these, and that like is devoid of as much bias as possible. These last three movies, especially, he doesn't have barely any moments, if any, that are just basic dialogue. He doesn't just talk to a person. He doesn't like every moment his lines are written is a very intense moment, and it's a pivotal moment, and there's an emotion that they're trying to definitely convey with the last word that Dom delivers.
Or is that just him being so good that he intensifies everything he does by being Vin Diesel? It seems more intense.
If he does, then it's even more of an argument to say how one-dimensional he is, because then he does that all the time and he has no other level.
When you go 100%, you can't go under 100%. It's always 100% all the time.
When that's all you ever are, then it's still limiting what you're putting on screen. And because every moment of his is framed in those ways, it's much more dynamic and interesting to watch, Tyrese and Han talk together up on that balcony when, Gal and Karina are Gina are going down to talk to the harpoon guy. It's interesting to watch how Han and Gal talk about their future plans. There's more. Other people are more interesting to watch because they're being more regular. In a way.
I think that's fair. I get that.
No, I understand what you're saying. I just, I attribute it to his good acting that he's able to do that.
Then if I had to like gun to my head be as generous as possible, then I would say he has perfected that thing that he does, because that is all he does. And he does it the same every single time. So, overall, as the group, well, I guess I kind of answered that, but as individuals, I don't know if I've like latched on to anybody in particular, but if I don't want to say more of a focus, because I know that's definitely not going to happen, but if the role that somebody plays, moments that other people are given, occur more frequently in the following chapters, that would be more compelling to me than some of the stunts, depending on how ridiculous they get, or definitely like just yet another like 5 moments in the movie for Vin Diesel to look like a badass.
I will say, for me personally, you're talking about like what happens in future films and what they do and continue to do.
Mm-hmm.
Brian will know what I'm referring to since he's seen the other movies. You won't, but there is a thread line throughout all 3 of the next movies between Tej and Roman that I find hilarious.
Yeah.
It's there, it's a thing, and they play off of each other very well, comedically.
Yeah, I think they realized somewhere in 5 and 6 that the banter between the two of them is a focal point going forward for the franchise. So they just put them in scenarios where they're just going to bicker and bitch at each other and go back and forth. And that's fun to me. It's another
And-
staple of the franchise that they just do in every movie now.
And that I will that's a challenge for any group ensemble movie. That's one of the reasons that I think critically and what ended up being box office, like why of the first Avengers movie became so popular, because they found a great way to play the dynamic of like 7 or 8 major people. You find pairs, you find groupings, but you also then find ways to grab one person and then throw them in with another for a bit that they're not predominantly with. But that's also one of the challenges that something like X-Men has had. By nature, that's a group ensemble from the beginning. You always have to find those things that work better and whatnot. So within this group, if you find this, there's 5, 6, 7 of the main core group. Yeah, finding maybe 2 of them that are kind of always going to be paired off mostly or have their quick moments together, that can work. And then sometimes you just kind of mix up the interactions with other people. Keep it dynamic, but that's what keeps it interesting, because that's what feels more like real life. There are people you're around more frequently, yes, but the people that are not, I don't want to say, this is going to sound bad, like not like to say like the B team of your life, but those that are like just the next group that you don't see as often
Yeah.
or as much. But it's still, just that change up of things can always keep things from feeling stale. And that's what I think, that's the difference between his moments always feel stale as hell, and everybody else, whatever they have to do, it's always new. They very like, it feels like they rarely continue to always put the same people together all the time. They find, well, here's a reason why these 2 are over here, these 3 are together in this side, and then maybe by the act 2, it's a different combination for a different outcome.
Yeah.
The goal they're serving in that next scene requires this different combination, and it keeps it dynamic and keeps it more interesting.
Well, and I think one of the things even that like you can see in action, like you're talking about, like how people act in real life and all that. There's actually one of the funniest moments, if not the funniest moment in this movie, is right at the end when they're at Dom's house in L.A. and what is his name, Hobbs, is coming up the driveway, and he said, like, I don't know what Roman says to him, but he says back to him, like, oh yeah, gonna miss that forehead, back to him. And this was an ad-libbed line, and it was a legitimate spit take from Ludacris during that moment, and that just makes it better. Like, knowing that about it makes it better, because getting to see an actor take a legitimate spit take because they found it so funny, because it was obviously a joke directed from Dwayne Johnson to Tyrese Gibson, not from Hobbs to Roman Pierce, which makes it so great.
Which is interesting, because think of the way that you shoot movies. If you have a 2-person interaction, you typically shoot it at least twice. First from the perception and perspective of the one group, and then you redo the entire same scene from the other side so that you're looking both directions. So that would mean that when they're shooting Ludacris and Tyrese, they're delivering their lines, and The Rock, whose like turn it is to not even be on camera, probably, yes, ad-libbed and threw that out, resulting in that moment, and they liked it so much that they're like, okay, we now have to shoot your coverage of you delivering that line again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that moment when you realize gold just happened and I didn't even make it happen as a director. They just did it.
Right.
I mean, and that's why The Rock is the most expensive person in Hollywood to employ right now. Is because the guy just, he gets it. I don't know what it is that he gets. He gets it. He gets it.
Yeah.
Josh, the other question I'm going to ask too, as far as like the villain for this movie, how did you feel about Luke Evans in this one? You felt like he fit, or?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I did. I did not know he was involved in any of these. I never really think about these films, especially after the first one, like quote having villains, but it seems like that's the way it's gonna go.
Yeah.
Because the crew are, technically the villains of the first. Their heist is the villain of the first movie. I think his role, he did fine. I think he could have been given a bit more to do, but I think what they tried to do, especially with that like dialogue standoff with him and Dom by the bridge, I
Right,
think, like by
yeah.
the river, was really like the one time that they let sort of that like that subtle like dangerous villain sort of silver tongue side come out.
Yeah.
And then other than that, they, just basically give him, coverage shots interacting with his crew ahead of time. Then you get into the big climax pieces in the third act. So I think he could have been given more to do. It just depends on, I guess, like on exactly like how sick you want us to think this dude is.
Yeah.
But for his part, like I wouldn't have easily thought like, oh, you need a kind of villain for an action movie, and he's going to be like, he's an international criminal, of course, because they all are. Yeah, I think he fit the bill well. He did okay.
Well, again, every movie is upping the ante. So now we're like this, our crew is like this elite team that they need to bring in to solve problems now. And that's kind of what
that
jumps off in the next couple movies.
And Interpol cannot.
And I actually kind of
anytime there's
forgot.
driving involved, we got to have Dom's crew.
Yeah,
if there's
nobody knows
cars
how to
involved, you got to
make
have
or
Dom.
drive a goddamn car, apparently, anywhere else in the world.
I kind of forgot the whole like this is the anti, like Vin Diesel crew that we're up against. Like I forgot that Luke Evans's crew was like the only thing I could think of at the time when we were watching it was like the anti-IMF, like they did with Mission Impossible,
like
where like
that and like the Bizarro version.
Yeah, like I totally forgot about that aspect of the movie because it's been that long since I've seen it, and I kind of dig that. I kind of like making the characters we follow have to fight more or less mirror images of themselves. Like that's a fun dynamic for a movie.
Tyrese pointing it out, like Roman pointing it out at the one point was hilarious. That was great.
Yeah. I will say I did appreciate that because I actually didn't pick up on it myself, so I'm glad they just put it on Front Street.
And it's something the franchise as a whole just plays with from here on out. Is like they are very tongue in cheek and they acknowledge the absurdity of some of the shit that happens in these movies.
Gotcha.
A lot of it comes from Roman Pierce pointing that out.
Yes.
Pointing out how ridiculous things that are about to happen are.
So was this probably was, Brian, this was, you kind of mentioned that they give like a wink about something to the audience, and it's not exactly fourth wall breaking, but it's as close as you can get.
I think in 9 there's a couple definite hey, we know what you're saying about these movies outside of watching them. We understand we're like too far into this to change it now, so we're just going to lean the hell into all this stuff that you're talking about and just go for it.
Gotcha.
I'm really hoping they hear the talk about like Jurassic Park crossover.
Oh Jesus! Like I'm worried about that ruining Jurassic Park more than anything else.
I don't think it would be a serious take on. I mean, Jurassic Park is like honestly, it's done a good job of trying to ruin itself a couple times now.
It has, but that would anything like this would just take it so out of the realm of even believable, like whether you enjoy them or not.
So hear me out.
Oh God.
A lot of the Jurassic Park stuff takes place on Pacific Islands.
Uh-huh.
We, obviously with the last Jurassic Park movie, they're leading into dinosaurs kind of being loose in the real world, not just and seeing, like the crossover be that, Dom and the crew exist in that world where the dinosaurs have gotten loose and proliferated on Earth, and that's a world that they live in where it happened.
They're going to be like sheep herders, but instead of hurting them just by running them down, they get their cars and they have to herd the dinosaurs back into cages.
I
really I wasn't thinking about that, but I really want that to be something that they do at this point.
It's $1 million idea, Josh.
$1 million.
You're taking a $1 billion franchise and a $1 billion franchise, and you're slapping them together, and you're saying this is a multi-billion-dollar franchise if we do that. And
we joke about this, but for sure there's some studio head somewhere that's like in somewhere with a whiteboard. Like, okay, so if we do this, This will work. The internet seems to like it. It's all over Twitter. It's on Reddit. Let's go.
Yeah, wherever it originated from, whether it was like one of those things like, well, like someone here had this weird, wild notion, we'll leak it or put it out as like a burner Twitter account post, see if it catches fire. You wonder if it started that way, or you know, but almost regardless, yes, I absolutely do not doubt that somebody has been tasked with like 100 hours of just
Some ground
kind of exploring the idea.
ground roots
Let me.
PR campaign.
All it takes is one line in Fast 10, whenever that happens, of them remembering the incident in San Diego in the 90s when, the T-Rex was roaming the streets and all that. Just one mention of it, and all of a sudden we have a shared universe.
Or they say something with like the line of, man, you see that family of dinosaurs running down the street. Not only do you say family in there, but you acknowledge dinosaurs also. That is the most Fast and Furious Jurassic Park crossover you need.
Well, I guess, I'd have to ask that question too. Like, what does Dom do in today's world? Is he going to mention the coronavirus? Like, does he not drink Coronas anymore? Like, I'm just wondering, like, if he's what
I'm
they're going to do with that.
With the delay, I mean, you guys haven't mentioned it, so like with the 1 year delay in releasing this most recent movie, that they didn't do just like a 2-hour pickup shoot of recording some line where they kind of give like a wink and a nod to Corona in that way. They absolutely
They still drink Coronas in that one, I'm pretty sure. I think I remember
they
seeing
have
Coronas.
Coronas. And I agree. It would have been cool to have that wink and nod, but I really don't actually think they did anything with that movie since they completed it.
No, it was done. It was ready to go. They
Yeah,
just
they
delayed it a year.
Yeah, they just sat on it and were like, all right.
Speaking of family, Josh, I know you were tallying. What was the tally up to for family? How many times did they say family in this movie?
I think, and I labeled my notes file on my phone for this as family. I didn't even call it fast, like nothing. It's family. I think it's 9.
Okay.
And
That's respectable.
At least 3 of those came from that Luke Evans,
Yeah.
Vin Diesel conversation by the river. 2 or 3 of them,
I think
the last 2 or 3 of them came in like the last 90 seconds from that gather around the picnic table ending in the closing of the scene. At least 2 of them, maybe another third. So they were the first 3 were spread out, then the other 2 sections were very concentrated.
Yeah.
And I
have
loved, I don't know if this was a thing before this or not, but if people are either making them now or resurfacing them, I don't care. All of the family memes I'm seeing all over the internet for the last week, keep them coming.
Every time there's a new Fast movie, you're going to see the family memes.
I feel like they're much more out there now than they were before. So I think 9 kickstarted something.
Much more forward now, I feel like, than they have. Like, it's,
probably, yeah.
I feel like meme culture has become bigger.
Josh, do you think this movie maybe went too far in its ridiculousness, or was it about what you'd expect? So, like, I know you have a jump to shark moment, so absolutely. I'm kind of like getting into there
to head that way. So I'd say, I mean, because the moments that occurred were few and contained, I would say no, it has not jumped the shark yet. The movie as a whole.
Okay.
There were moments for that movie that absolutely did, but they were not to the like magnitude enough that you're like, okay, that is what I will summarize the mood of the whole film as.
Yeah. I think I remember the infinite runway with the plane sequence at the end, like the runway that just takes 45 minutes before you even get to the end of it. That part is the part that's memorable for me. I actually sort of kind of forgot about the tank until we were like halfway through, and I was like, wait, we're getting to the freeway sequence. Wait, the tank's there. Like, I kind of forgot about all of that. The runway sequence is what sticks with me from this movie. But, I mean, those 2 moments aside, for the most part, I think the movie is fairly grounded, aside from those 2 sequences, which is less than I would have thought after coming after 5.
Agreed. And I would say, like, the infinite runway is just something that, and I'll be honest, I'm like watching what everybody's trying to do, and so I'm actually not paying attention to that. I didn't realize how long it had actually been going till you pointed it out.
Oh, see, I broke the glass on that one for him. Shattered the illusion.
No, it's fine. It was there, like it was obvious, and I just missed it. But I feel like doing something that was obviously, literally unbelievable for it taking so long. Still, like it didn't take it outside of the boundaries of keeping it grounded. Like it
Okay.
still was based in quasi-reality. They just expected us to not pay attention to that.
Right. Okay.
The tank more falls toward that spectrum, though. And even, I mean, the comment I made to Brian, either during or post actually watching it together this time, was that I tried this time around especially to view those two sequences, the highway and the runway, through the lens of action movie genre. And I said, honestly, those two sequences could have been designed and incorporated into a number of other franchises and or just like big standalone action movies.
Yeah.
So I could forgive them for the general concept and nature of them without, trying to unfairly say like, oh God, exactly, this is the crap I was expecting would happen with these movies,
Right.
and oh look,
Right.
I'm vindicated by here they are.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't have been generous enough. So the moment itself, even when the tank burst out, I was taken aback by the fact that I had no idea that a tank of any kind, like a vehicle, like anything, was inside the damn truck first.
Yeah.
So when it shows up as like a tank, I'm like, what? Wait, was that on the menu earlier? Like, did we have any indication that something like that was possibly happening? Okay. But the moment, and if we'll just hit this moment now, the moment that I at least said, like, these two things happened and they are unforgivable in this film. The first one was after the tank is caught up to Tyrese, and Tyrese, I think, has already gotten out of the car at this point. The tank is dragging his car in front of him, and he somehow leaps off of the hood of his car onto the roof of Paul Walker's, catches around both the windows enough
Yeah.
to stabilize himself and go off. I'm like, you just got crushed by a tank. You jumped off a car being crushed by a tank. No. No.
And
You're
speaking
just
of
not
the,
swole enough for that. That's all it is. You ain't got those muscles, man.
and then speaking of like the memes Josh was referring to, I
Yeah.
found one on Twitter that was literally that moment that said like,
Oh, I got it.
you can't do this because of gravity. Yeah. I can't remember what it said exactly. You have
There's
to set it
multiple
up.
moments like that in this movie. They jump out of the plane into the Jeeps.
Oh, there's
you
there's
would
so
just
much
splat
jumping.
onto the ground because unless you can jump at the same speed the plane and Jeep are moving, you're
That's
going to
what
go
I said.
down,
Yeah.
and you're just going to hit the ground where you jumped.
Yes.
That's they did this on Mythbusters. It's a thing. Like you can't do that.
You would have to
Yeah.
jump so far forward to catch up, hopefully, with the thing that has continued to displace.
You
Correct.
would
You
need
would have
to
just
jump it however fast it's going
pretty much
to
yes.
fall straight down.
Actually, even
Like,
faster
the
because you're going to
Tyrese
lose
thing.
speed on the way down.
Presumably.
So yes, that was bullshit. But yeah, the meme was some of the characters looking forward and just saying, "That's not how gravity works." And the second picture is Tyrese making the leap from car to car, saying, "I don't have gravity. I got family." That's if that's all I
It was
saw,
so
that would summarize
perfect.
it. Yeah.
So perfect.
That, and then I'm sorry, this even took the cake. And again, this absolutely would exemplify my argument about Vin Diesel in these movies. Vin Diesel jumping out of the driver's side of a car over a gap in a highway that's a chasm at the moment and the lanes are separated, to catch a human being coming from the opposite direction who is also flying midair, to intercept her, both of them clear that lane gap, even though their velocities are going in opposite directions, and
He's
somehow
got more total, momentum,
somehow
more mass.
still. No, he doesn't, because she's being flung off of a tank that is being
He
overturned.
was flung too. He flung himself with his car. He turns the wheel into the barrier and flings himself. He doesn't just jump.
But he's not reaping the there's not a transference of force or momentum from the car to him. He's still solely going to be relying in that moment on his own, basically his own muscle power of jumping. Whenever
I
that
didn't
happens,
take that way. I took it as him using the force of the stop from the car hitting the barrier to launch him.
even so, that
In
shit
this
ain't
case,
happening.
it's ridiculous. I'm not trying to defend what happened there. I'm just saying, like, I took it differently as them trying to show him slingshotting himself, essentially, by wrecking the car.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe he tried to use that to his advantage. Either way, they're both dead. Neither.
Oh, no, yeah, definitely.
Either he's not even making it over that barrier. They're both plummeting to the bottom of that ravine. Neither of them are making it anywhere.
Even if it happens the way it happened, the speed at which he would be going and landing onto the next car that they safely fall onto splatters them into a million pieces.
Dead.
So, yes.
He'd be going 70, 80, 90 miles an hour, whatever it was, flinging himself off from a wreck, increasing his speed when he does so.
So we were watching this with Leslie, another super friend, and this was her first time seeing it as well. And towards the end of the movie, Letty, I forget if it's back when they're at the house, wherever the hell it happens, she asks Dom about that moment and says, "How did you know the car would be there to break our fall?" As if that's important. Like, whether you land on a freaking car or you went 4 more feet to the pavement and ground, you're still gonna die.
They needed a marshmallow truck.
They said, like, that's the
To
thing.
be
Like, they needed some kind of,
driving
like,
past at that
conveniently
moment.
placed thing. Like,
Truck of pillows.
Yeah, as though the car being there was, like, indicative of, well, I just took the chance and then that worked out. Like, well, I didn't, because if the car was there, then we would have been in trouble if the car wasn't there. Are you shitting me?
They would have been in trouble if it was a truck of pillows. Even if they had the truck of pillows, the real speed they'd have been going.
Yes.
But I could buy, like, that movie logic. Like, okay, there's just a conveniently placed truck of pillows, and we ended up in the back seat. It's like landing in a garbage truck whenever people try to jump from buildings.
Yeah,
I would,
and it's one of those things, like, you can't prove it wrong. Like, well, there wouldn't have been a truck of pillows there. How the fuck do you know?
Yeah,
they're
just doing their delivery. You don't know that.
Yeah, it's
I
a
would
movie
have,
device.
I would have
It's
actually
bullshit,
had
but-
less of a problem with that, because I would be able
Because
to
they-
chalk it up to convenience as opposed to believing in some, like, just badass design of things going down. Like, no.
Well, like, the convenience is still believable because landing on that car, there's zero chance they actually survive even landing on that car.
Oh yeah.
Landing in a truck of pillows, maybe.
You could,
Maybe.
you could pass that off. That's fine.
I don't know if they'd live or die. I can't definitively say in my own head he would be dead had they landed in a truck of pillows. So
So Josh, that was your jump the shark moment. Did you come back around after that, or was that enough to be like, you know what, I've checked out the rest of the movie. That's it.
If that, I think I said this when we finished watching, is that if that was your act 3, then yes.
Okay.
It would have been like, F this in the face. The fact that it continued on and there was more to it, and even like bigger scale and grandiose as the whole runway thing is, there was, I don't want to say there was a little bit of time to be distracted and almost forget that happened.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot more going on with that scene. The only other real note that I guess I wrote down was during the runway fight, which either was the most ridiculous thing in the world, and I'm not gonna say it wouldn't hurt a dude, but I'm like, really? Somebody, like either the writer, the director, Vin Diesel, somebody thought like this is the move, this is the moment. Uh, one of us described it as the dolphin torpedo headbutt.
Yeah.
That like in the middle of that fight, like, oh, this guy is dwarfing Vin Diesel, and he's effectively fighting a small building, but his little lunge forward headbutt is what knocked him, disoriented him enough for him to get the upper hand.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I mean, a headbutt's a pretty formidable attack. I guess the problem is that nobody wins in a headbutt.
Yeah.
You know,
Unless you're in the movies.
Right.
You
Yeah.
just do it and keep on rolling. Did you have any like favorite moments, Josh? Anything that stuck out to you that you enjoyed? Action sequence or character moment, something?
I should have written it down and should have made a note. There was something in maybe the first 45 minutes that I do remember laughing at that was actually really witty, that I like a moment I enjoyed. And
I can take a guess.
I'm gonna fail the listeners, and it's like making for terrible.
It was the vending
Content
machine
right
moment,
now.
wasn't it?
Actually, it might have been.
Oh, okay.
Was it when? Was it when
Tyrese
The Rock
holds up a
shoots
coin
it?
and says, "Hey, which one of these is $1?" And then The Rock just gets real pissed and shoots the vending machine and breaks the glass so all the stuff spills out.
That might have been it.
I
See,
think there was another moment after that, but I remember that one.
Yeah,
I was
think
gonna
you're
go
right.
with Hobbs and Tej going to the car auction, and the guy telling them, he's just like, "I'm gonna need your watch too." Just like, they make the guy give him all their clothes,
Oh,
just
okay.
progressively.
I didn't say it while we were watching, but that made me think in a way of like it was almost like very Pretty Woman esque.
Oh yeah,
Like rich asshole treats them badly, is shown to be the asshole, and then
Yeah.
in Pretty Woman, as they're in the shop, there's a moment where like for Richard Gere, she's like, he would love that tie to the person helping him, and the shop owner is like, take that off now, you give her that tie. And he just like totally demoralizes him, like, yeah, you do that. It kind of did the same thing, like, yep, we took all your cars. You know what? We would like your pants, your watch, your tie, your shirt.
you can keep the coat though.
Yeah,
Like that was
that was bad, and that's what I mean. When there's more going on, it has the chance to become more entertaining and actually more interesting of a story.
Yeah. I actually think like a lot of the action sequences, I think, and Mike, you can feel free to jump in here, but I think a lot of the action sequences for me stuck out as being, I think, some of my favorite in the franchise in this movie. I was telling them when we were watching it, I kept saying like Fast Five is my favorite, but having watched this one after watching Fast Five a little bit recently, I think I'm amending. I think 6 is my favorite. I think 6 does the most right for me. I think the opening first act action sequence with the ramp car is great. I think the middle action sequence where, I guess if you want to call the tank second act or probably second act, yeah, tank sequence is awesome. The hand-to-hand chase sequence that we get between Michelle Rodriguez and Gina Carano and Tyrese and Han and that Chinese guy they were fighting.
that was a great fight.
Like, I love that whole moment. That reminded me of, like, Lethal Weapon when Mel Gibson and Danny Glover are trying to take on Jet Li and, like, just getting their ass handed to them. Like,
Yeah.
that whole sequence reminded me of that. I thought that was awesome. Again, as much as I complain about the infinite runway, like, everything in the plane sequence, all of that, I think, is awesome also. Like, this hits so many beats for me in this movie. I don't know how you feel, Mike.
The plane sequence I have a couple problems with, of course, logistically, but thematically and through the story and how they present things, I've got one major issue. And Josh said he doesn't care about spoilers or anything, which this is
Go
not
for
a
it.
major spoiler. I'll try to be as vague as possible, but we see
Well,
two
wait,
people.
wait, just real quick. Since you specifically made the point about the spoiler warning being laid down for Fast 6, do you want to name, if it's like a future installment, do you want to name it so that if other people
spoiler
are also
warning for the
aware?
first 10 minutes of Fast 7.
Okay, just so other people are aware.
we see 2 people die in that sequence.
Okay.
Okay. Or maybe more. I don't. Does the big bulky guy die, or does he just get his ass kicked?
I don't remember what happens
I don't
to
think
him.
he has like an official name.
Yeah.
But
I mean, knowing
big bulky
knowing
Hobbs
these movies,
on their team guy.
the collateral damage in these is huge. So I'm sure easily
yeah.
2 people die.
Well, no, 2 are supposed to be definitely dead,
Okay.
and that is Gal Gadot's character.
By the end of this, yes, I got that
What's her name?
impression, kind of. Giselle?
Giselle.
And Shaw are both supposedly dead.
Sure.
The one who falls from a shorter distance in a much less threatening way stays dead. Which is
That we know of,
Giselle.
as of right now.
as that we know of right now. Giselle is dead. Shaw, who falls from a much higher height, is beaten up very badly and in a hospital bed, but alive. Can somebody just explain? They should both be dead. Let me be very clear
So I had
about this. They should
to
both be
actually go back and
100%
rewatch
dead.
that section of the movie because I was like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure Luke Evans comes back at some point, and I was like, what happened to his character in this movie? Oh no, he's ejected from the back of the plane as
Well,
it's
at,
going.
like,
He should
75
As it's
most
trying to take
definitely
off,
be
like,
dead.
yeah, like it's, and she falls like 20 feet off the back of the car. Like
I
it's
made this
the car's
point, too.
hanging very close to the ground
and the way that
off of the plane.
the way that they shoot her quote fall and like showing her it's almost like they did one of those like she fell so far she like went through the fog and clouds, and then they
Exactly.
like a few like a minute later when they really barely even probably like 30 seconds after that where they are in more of like a wide shot and they show again how close the vehicles are to the ground. I'm like, yes, I could believe someone going like falling that distance at that velocity could sustain injury enough to die. It's also not as much of a given for me mentally that like I had to ask like, oh, is she dead? Are we supposed to understand she's dead? Because
Yeah.
I could easily see, but I get it. The way that the Han story played out, her death is the final thing drawing him to finally go to Tokyo, which
Right.
then wraps up their retcon that Brian explained to me, doing all that. So that's the final thing to motivate him to do that. She can't be alive because then it would F things up. That's fine.
Well,
And
if
when
she
I-
was alive and she didn't show up in the 3rd movie, it wouldn't have made sense.
Right. Now, they've when I watched that scene again when Shaw gets thrown out the back of the plane, they both, between him and Giselle, they both kind of fade into nothing. Like they just kind of disappear into the blackness of the screen.
Yeah.
So you
Right.
never see the body. So movie logic tells me that if they find a way to bring Luke Evans back, at some point when Gal Gadot is not doing Wonder Woman and becomes less expensive, maybe they will bring her back into Fast and Furious.
Like they can't afford
That's
her
going to be a
anymore.
while. No,
Yeah.
I was going to say with, the fact that, whether it's, I mean, John Cena is obviously not as expensive as The Rock, but he's still not cheap.
Yeah.
Plus what Vin Diesel commands and what, I mean, their cast is rather expensive these days.
And I don't want to tell Josh some of the cast because if we ever get there, I don't know if he knows who's in these movies, and I think it'd be more fun if he just watches them and he's like, why the fuck are you here?
Given your
Yeah.
comment, I was just about to ask if Cena is now in 9, but I don't really. I mean, if you told me, I don't
He-
really care. I'd probably forget by the time I got there. if
He
I ever do.
he shows up for the first time in 9.
Yeah.
There's no spoiler or anything there. He was very much in the advertising. It wasn't like.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's the thing. Josh sees nothing of these movies. He is completely
Right.
blind to anything.
But I mean, you're not going to see him ahead of time. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're not seeing him in 7 or 8. You're not hearing his name or mention of him in any way.
So if we ever get to 9, 2 years from now, you'll have forgotten about this whole conversation.
Yep.
Yeah. But nonetheless, like, they're very expensive. And she now, that she started playing Wonder Woman, is very expensive too, I'm sure. I don't know what kind of price she gets, but it's much more than it was when she did these.
Yeah, I would think whatever movie they end on, they're going to find a way to bring her back. I'd almost think they'd have to. Because every movie... the amount of stuff that they
normally said
retcon...
no, but now after 9, I would say yes.
Yeah, I think the amount of stuff they retcon and the people they bring back that have supposedly died, like, no one is off the table anymore. I'm beginning to think that these characters are immortal. I'm just going to say that. I don't think they can be killed.
Isn't that
And if they...
well, yeah, I mean, it's I don't want to spoil anything from 9.
Yeah, I'm I guess sort of acknowledging certain points, but I'm willing to just the way they are making these movies, I fully believe that's where they're going with this shit.
That would be
Um,
great.
I don't really have anything. The other couple questions I have are just as the franchise as a whole. So, Mike, I don't know if you have anything specifically for 6 for Josh.
Trying to recall anything that we didn't touch on. Well, I guess like this one has always kind of bugged me. So I guess it makes sense to ask since we just were talking about Giselle.
Mhm.
But Giselle and Han, do you really think they built enough of a relationship there that her death mattered? Because
As
I
far
feel
as the
like
Fast and
min-
Furious
min-
franchise is concerned, yes.
Minimally, yes. And
It just-
I had to ask. I kind of forgot. Like they were kind of established as a starter thing in 5, weren't they?
Yes.
with
like
like,
the-
a look.
There was beginnings there. I mean, for it to be impactful to me personally, no. To understand that it was impactful to the character when it happened, yes.
Okay. I guess another one that I had, Gina Carano's character turns
Mhm.
in a big
Oh,
shocker
yeah.
moment. And then he's like, "Oh, you're gonna come with us," or whatever he says to her at the end there, and she's like, "Yeah," and it's like, why the hell would he take her out of cover at that moment? There is absolutely no reason to be like, "Oh yeah, she's good." We have undercover at one of like the top end government agencies that we possibly could at this point,
Mm-hmm.
and we could still use this to our advantage. Why would we stop that?
I think
That's a good point.
at least the way I understood it is he's succeeded in his ultimate plan. The only thing they have left to do is leave, and they've won.
Right.
Which at that point they
haven't
think
done
is
yet.
as easy as getting on a plane and leaving. So
But
that's
he-
just I think
guess,
like
just rubbing it in their face because he could still
Yeah, it's a-
extricate her at any other point he wanted to. She
Right.
could get away in another
It's-
way.
it's the-
If he
that's a
leaves
good
her
point,
there, she could have interrupted what they were trying to do so that he could get away.
right. It's villain
it's-
101. It's the big dick move of like the third act of like everybody like, look, I'm better than you. See ya. It's the equivalent of the evil monologue before they try to kill somebody that then they escape.
That's fair.
But that point, the actual moment, I think, Josh, that surprised you, right? You didn't see that twist coming of her being a villain.
I did not.
So to me, that's kind of fun that like, I've seen it, so I know that was coming, and I don't remember first time watching it if that was a surprise to me or not. But
They
Watching this movie
foreshadow
with
it
people-
so many times.
they foreshadow there's someone working against them, and because we were sort of talking this out afterwards, but they pop around to other different agencies that it almost feels like you're led to believe there's almost a mole in each of these agencies, not that there's one person that has access to all of it.
Right.
So I think by the time it's revealed that it's her, then all the pieces click into place and it makes sense. But yeah, I think, watching this with people that hadn't seen it before and they were actually surprised that was the twist. Like that's a fun thing to see.
It wasn't like shattering, like, oh my god, it just turned everything on its head. But at the least, no, they didn't betray anything of it before that.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's 5 actually. Okay. Yeah, the other question I was going to ask was about Vince, but that's 5.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Josh, we'll kind of wind down with a couple franchise questions, then maybe we'll just end with a rating and see what you thought of this one, if you
Okay.
want to give it a number. Out of the movies we've watched, 1, 4, 5, and 6, I guess just from your perspective, do you want to pinpoint one of these where it feels like the franchise kind of turns a corner and veers into a different direction? Which one to you felt like it finally was like, okay, we're shifting from car racing movie to something else?
Probably in 5.
Okay.
I mean, even like car racing was barely present even in 4. But
True.
But
Yeah.
the aspect of, I guess the way that like some of the action sequences were designed was still with the like car performance, I don't know, like benefits maybe, like car performance centric ideas in mind still. um, to like construct those. Whereas even in this one, like in 4 and 5, it seemed like anytime they were really talking about okay, they go to the auction and they buy all those cars. We go because it's all about how you customize and do this and that. Yeah, but did anything that they do have a direct pivotal impact on what was
Okay.
really happening? Like, yeah, you use
Yeah.
some fast cars in parts. Well, then you're just the Italian Job at that point, which is fine. The Italian Job is very enjoyable. Both of them are.
Yeah.
But yeah, they like quote like car racing, car culture, this and that. Like, is it really anymore? I don't know. Yeah, it kind of falls out there.
Okay, that's fair. Again, out of the movies we've seen, 1, 4, 5, and 6, do you have a favorite, or maybe phrase it as the one you hated the least?
I think something you said earlier. I forget your phrasing, but 6 probably had the best combination of the elements.
Okay.
I think 5 had if 5 had the characterization, and the just like the better dialogue moments for the script that 6 had, I think 5 would be better than 6, because
Okay.
5 stays more grounded, and
Yeah.
it didn't really go over the top with even as much destruction and probably innocent people that they killed with that safe, dragging it through the goddamn city. It's still like it lacked the major suspension of disbelief with the highway and the runway scene. Although it did have that opening scene with the prison bus that I still contend.
Oh, yeah.
But you kind of get that out of the way early, and you're like, all right, that was bullshit, but fine, we'll move on.
Yeah, we're moving on, yeah.
If that movie had been bolstered by some of the script and character points that 6 had, I think 5 would be superior. But collectively, 6 had enough of more, like, checked more of the boxes entirely.
Yeah, okay. And I love that, like, everyone points at 5 as like, man, that save sequence is really awesome. It's such a sore spot for you, and I love it.
It's not that it's cool. It's just like, okay, so if you watch, what's the movie? It doesn't happen to the extent that it does, but like Terminator 3, there's a sequence where the Terminator, the female Terminator, has commandeered like a crane truck, like a big ass crane truck, and Schwarzenegger gets somehow at one point on the end of the partially extended crane, and she is moving the truck to one side of the street or the other and plowing through the first and second floors of buildings along this like industrial park street type of thing. But it's very apparent from the way they constructed it all that like there's not another human being around. You're not getting the impression that these buildings are populated. There's not people on the sidewalks. Fast 5, it's just in the middle of a freaking city. Like at peak time.
Definitely
and
downtown.
They're just wrecking shit.
All right, last question I have before we get to a rating. And I know it's something, well, I don't know, maybe it's more of a question, but it's something we sort of touched on before we started the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Something I'll sort of revisit now. But after finishing 6, again, I'm giving you the out. Would you rather walk away from this franchise, or is it tolerable to possibly continue at some point down the line? Because I know, we said we'd give you up till 6. This was the end of our sort of bargain, our deal for trades. But you also said, I think in the previewing, that if you're ever going to watch them, having the excuse to have them part of the podcast is the only way you might ever be able to sit and watch them. So I applaud you for being such a good sport up to this point.
You too.
But again, I'm giving you an out. If you want to be done, that we can stop. If you want to leave the door open, we can do that too.
I am fine leaving the door open, and I think it is. I don't know about how you feel. I think it is fun, at least for me. I don't know, because nobody ever gives us feedback, so we don't know how anybody feels. But if you have any enjoyment in the scary movies we're picking, we could kind of re-up that idea, or we could redesign it. I think for this, having somewhat of like a trade-off or a back and forth has worked well. I think that dynamic has worked well. I don't know if you
Yeah.
agree. But if we found a way to continue that dynamic in some regard, I think we can do that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try to discuss off air, or even if if somebody wants to chime in and tell us if you like this type of format, you want to hear more Josh continue the Fast and Furious franchise, we can, if we get some feedback that's positive and you want to hear it, we'll work a little bit harder to get that going. Otherwise, it's going to be at our convenience. At this point, could be another 2 or 3 years from now. So we will see how quickly we get through any of this stuff.
Yeah,
I
'cause
just need
it's-
to make like 10 burner accounts when start giving feedback.
I mean,
all right, so
my ego would not be hurt by that at all. Like, look, we're getting interactions. People like us.
5-star reviews. Woo!
I didn't say reviews. I would just be like, no, do this.
Oh, fair.
I like that. I like that Fast and the Furious thing you did. Do more of that.
All right, so we'll wind down with a rating, and I'll present this to everybody. So, just out of 10, what would you give Fast and Furious 6? Should we start with Josh? Are you queued up for this? Do you want to take it?
Nah, give me a moment to contemplate.
All right, Mike, we'll come around to you. What do you give it out of 10?
I've
As a
never really
rewatch
thought
experience
of
for you.
a rating for it before, but on the spot, 6.5.
Okay.
And I'd say that because it's fun. I enjoy watching it. But my goodness, the plot holes and the retconning and the writing is a mess.
Okay.
And the feasibility of some of it is a mess. But it's still fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not something where it's like a drag to watch. Like, I still watch this movie several times knowing that I feel like it's like a mid-range movie. I've still watched it several times. I've watched all these Fast movies several times, but I know what they are. I just don't care.
Yeah.
It's the same reason I've watched Alien versus Predator a dozen times in my life, because I know it's crap, but it's still fun.
True story.
And I think that's kind of where I land is like, again, watching this again, I forgot how much I actually enjoy this movie. And I think this is one of those franchises that gets a bit of a pass for me is because, like, yes, if you look at the pieces of it and really try to dissect it, there are issues here. There's shit that does not make sense. It goes way into left field at certain points, but I'm with it. I'm in it. Like I forgive it. I get it's weird. Any other movie I would pick apart for these problems, but the Fast and Furious, I'm like, you know what? It's fine. It's kind of cool. I think this movie is peak Fast and Furious for me. I give this like a 9.5, somewhere in there for me. This is the most rewatchable, I think, of them for me. And probably the one that I point at to say, yes, this is Fast and Furious to me. I think the next 2, and even 3, if I want to include 9 in there, have way bigger jump the shark moments for me that I really kind of break that illusion and just go too far for me, where I'm like, this is going way past where I think it should be. But I understand they have to up the ante after all these movies and just try to one up each other, so I get where they're going. But yeah, this for me, this is the best Fast and Furious movie.
See, now for me, arguably in 7, it has 2 major jump the shark moments
Yeah.
that bothered me less than the ones in 6.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because I maybe it's just desensitization to it.
You're just
You know.
expecting it in all these movies now.
Well, yeah, like you get to that point. Like 9's bothered the hell out of me. 'Cause, like,
Yeah.
there was a few of them in 9 where I was just like, that's absolutely ridiculous. 7, nobody's ever going to try them to show whether or not it's possible, but I feel like it's not necessarily impossible. It's just nobody would ever actually attempt.
Oh, right. Yeah. It's
Does that
they
make
start to
sense? Like,
veer.
it's-
Yeah. I feel like they start to veer into like Mission Impossible territory, but not like, and I don't know how well they do their stunts. Like I know Mission Impossible is putting Tom Cruise in fucking weird situations to see what Tom Cruise might die doing. I don't feel like I get that sense from Fast and Furious. A lot of the stunts seem like they have some heavy CG help.
Oh, they did. Well, I mean, the 2 and 7 definitely
Yeah.
had a ton of that CG help because nobody's doing. There's no stunt driver in the world that's gonna do the one in Dubai
Yeah.
or India or wherever the hell they were in that one. No stunt
Right.
driver in the world's gonna even attempt that.
Yeah.
And the thing with the other thing in 7
I'm thinking of the RV. Is it the RV looking thing?
Or wait, maybe that's an 8. I'm thinking of submarine. Is that 8?
Submarine's 8. Yeah.
Okay, well, even still, that to me still seems plausible, but nobody's actually going to attempt it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to be able to say definitively, no, that's not how that would go, because we really don't know.
Right.
The whole thing in 7, I don't think it would work. But, I mean, if you were going fast enough...
That's
that's
the motto for this movie, this franchise. If you're going fast enough, anything is possible.
And I don't think they were going fast enough in 7. To be fair, I don't think they were. But if you were, technically speaking...
Yeah, we'll give it a go.
Yeah, I mean, we'll never know. We will literally never know. But
Josh, you want to come back around to you? You got a rating yet? Mulling it over a little bit. I'm gonna be surprised if it's above 5.
Well, since we've been doing ratings so much in the context of the comic book films with Rewind, I'm like, does any movie rating I give on any discussion now have to fit into like sort of that continuity or that paradigm, or can I just talk about it? Like, this is just the internal struggle that's happening.
See, I went with that paradigm. I went with putting it in that perspective, personally. The 6.5 for me was in the perspective of everything,
You've rated other stuff that, we've talked about.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
To be fair, let's put it this way. These ratings we're doing right now are not going to be on a spreadsheet somewhere that we're going to have to consult later. So,
I'll give this a 6.
Oh, all right. I'm happily surprised with that.
So on just the other half higher end of middle of the range, it's just, as an action movie in and of itself, it starts to achieve in that way.
And
you're allowed
honestly,
to say you had fun.
Yeah, at least a smidgen of fun.
I won't say it. Okay.
To be fair, like I do think, going into this, I knew Josh's aversion to the franchise. I knew where it was going. I didn't think he would really get into any of it. So I'm happy with that rating. I think it's a good. If we were to end here, this is a good place to end. Going out on a little bit of a high, I think.
Peaking at a 6. That's better than I would have expected.
Yeah. I'm gonna make sure I text your wife that you rated this one a 6, so she knows. All right. Well, I guess that's where we're gonna end this one. Again, we'll see. If you'd like to give us some feedback, let us know if you like this kind of stuff. If you want to hear more Fast and Furious stuff, we can try to plan that. Mike and I think, are probably the only ones on the show that have seen Fast 9. If you actually want to hear us talk about Fast 9, him and I can try to do that at some point. If it's just the two of us, I don't know if we'll take the time to do it. But who knows? If people want to hear it, we'll see if we can fit that in somewhere after the fact. As of right now, if you've enjoyed the show, please support us. Leave a 5-star rating and review. Be sure to give us a share on social media. You can follow or subscribe to the show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, Anchor, Stitcher. Hopefully anywhere you're listening to podcasts, you can find us. Check us out on Facebook. Search for Bry Guy into Super Friends or go to facebook.com/BryGuySuperFriends. You can send us questions, comments, topic suggestions there. You can try to email us, bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter @BGSuperFriends. You can also feel free to follow me on Twitch @JediBryGuy. That's Jedi with an I and Bry with a Y. If we ever decide to try to do a live episode, we will do it there. Any gameplay that I'm streaming, I'm doing it there. Feel free to give us a follow. And that's it for us. On behalf of Josh, Mike, and myself, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.